Great. And I'm going to hand it over to Carrie.
All right, well, thank you all so much for joining us this morning. So I'm just going to give you a brief overview about ElderHelp before Teresa goes into more about being a family caregiver. So our mission at ElderHelp is to provide personalized services and information that help seniors remain independent and live with dignity in their own homes. And that mission is very important to all of us here. So the programs that we offer through ElderHelp are really geared at reducing social isolation. We know that a lot of different medical or health-related issues can result if somebody is becoming more isolated at home and not staying active in their community. So just to give you a snapshot of ElderHelp and our last year, as you can see from the screen, we do have a staff of 17 and our volunteer corps of about 450 volunteers. So you can see who is really doing a lot of the wonderful services out in the community and supporting our seniors. It's volunteers in the community. And through all of our efforts, we were able to support over 7,400 seniors, family members, community members, neighbors who were calling or receiving services from us regarding an aging loved one or an aging friend that they might be looking at. Our budget on an annual basis is about $1 million. So the three core programs through ElderHelp involve our Concierge Club, our Seniors A Go-Go, and our Home Share. And just to give you a brief overview of each of those programs, our Concierge Club involves two different components. We have social workers that provide care coordination services. They do in-home assessments of the seniors who are interested in our program, and then they're also connecting those individuals to community resources or being an advocate for them. In addition to the care coordinators through this program, we also have many different volunteer services that are available and are all geared at keeping the seniors independent and living in their own homes for as long as possible. So that might include helping with grocery shopping, maybe just providing a social visit, we call friendly visiting, so keeping people engaged and active. It could be helping with a pet or maybe making the home safer through our home safety program. We also have our Seniors A Go-Go, which is just strictly transportation. So that's where we are having volunteer drivers who are taking seniors to their medical appointments or other activities that they're looking to go to. It could be even for something fun like going to the YMCA or going to a performance. So that's all done through our Seniors A Go-Go. And then our Home Share program matches up two individuals, one who is considered a home provider who has a spare room in their home, and that is typically an older adult or a senior, and we match those individuals with somebody who's looking for a room to move into. So the person moving in is often called the home seeker, and they might provide services in exchange for staying in the room, or they may just be simply paying rent to be there as a roommate. And there's a lot of good benefits that can come from even just having another person in the home. So that gives you just a brief overview of the three core programs that we have through ElderHelp. And how does somebody become eligible for our program? So for our services, it would be anybody who is age 60 or older who is living in their own home, and that could be their own single-family home. It could be a manufactured home, an apartment in an independent living building, or a 55-plus community. So it really could be anywhere that they identify as their own home, but it really is geared at those that are still living in their community. It is important for all of our programs and the seniors, and part of the keeping the dignity and our mission, to make sure that the seniors who are receiving our services are able to self-advocate and that they are interested in receiving the help. So we work directly with those individuals to find out what type of needs they have and really connect them through our programs as well as other community resources. So we're looking at all of those different things, and they're in the driving seat for that. We do have a service area that covers quite a few components or different communities in San Diego County, mostly central San Diego, parts of East County, and then we are branching more into North County. We go as far as Rancho Bernardo or Encinitas. And of course, it all can be due to volunteer availability if we're in certain areas or not. So we're always looking at expanding our reach and doing that with the resources that we have and trying to expand in different ways. So that gives you just an overview about the eligibility process for becoming one of the members of our programs.
So that was a very quick and dirty version of who we are and what we do all over San Diego County. Welcome, Marissa. I'm so glad I got your email and you could hustle in here. You must be very tech savvy. We're so happy to have you. Just want to let you know that we are recording this, so I can send you the link to the beginning when Carrie was talking about our programs and services, in case you would like to review that. Does anybody have any specific questions for Carrie right now before she leaves us about, she really didn't go into detail about the volunteer experience, but that is, Carrie, that's your main area of expertise. She does all of our outreach to recruit all of the fabulous volunteers that provide the services for our seniors and really are the backbone of this agency. Does anybody have any specific questions for Carrie regarding Seniors A Go-Go, the Concierge Club, the Home Share Program, or the volunteering experience? Okay, JC's got an excellent question, Carrie. JC wants to know what the term self-advocate means, and legally capable to make decisions is what I'm thinking that your guess is on that one. Could you explain what self-advocate means?
Of course. So for us, because it is important that we are able to communicate directly with the person who's receiving services, to us being able to self-advocate is meaning that somebody who's able to initiate the initial call to learn about the process and to get started with our programs. So they are individuals who are able to keep a schedule, would be able to remember the volunteers who are coming to visit them or to help them. Those are all different kind of key factors that we're looking at. So we are absolutely welcome to, do kind of that screening process over the phone initially. And if we have questions or if we're not quite sure if it would be a good fit, we might still come out to the home and do that initial assessment in the home to really get a better idea of how somebody is able to keep a schedule or to understand the program and what we're able to offer. So that's something that is important for all of our programs as well as for the seniors so that they're able to have a say in their plan of care.
So I think in our context, Carrie, just to drive it home, JC, if you think that our services would be helpful for your aging loved one, you did say that you are a family caregiver for a few years now, really also what that means is have them give us a call to initiate the process. So you can share the information, invite your loved one to come on a webinar with us. We can tell you about outreach efforts. You could follow us on Facebook, show your loved one what we do and how we do it, and then for that person to start the process for eligibility to receive our services, your aging loved one would have to make that initial call. You're welcome to call us and get more information or email. I'm happy to send you things that you can print out to show your aging loved one. But in our agency, self-advocate does mean that your loved one would have to reach out to initiate that process.
And I just would like to add too that part of the reason for that is because our services are not on a regular daily basis. So our volunteers might be visiting with a senior maybe once a week, depending on what services they're looking for. Our social workers might be in communication with them. But if somebody is starting to need more of that everyday assistance or help with their personal care, that's where we kind of look at if somebody would be maybe looking at other resources in addition to what ElderHelp can provide. So that's kind of one component that we look at too.
JC, do you feel like your question's been answered? And while you respond, understood. Okay, great. And I like to welcome the caller that just came on. I have a feeling it's either Annalisa or Annalisa. I'm hoping it is you, that we got your email in time to send you the login information. Welcome, and if you feel inclined to use the chat box, please do. Also know that we are recording this, and I will send you the recorded version of this for the beginning part that you may have missed. Any other questions about our programs and services, or eligibility, or the volunteer experience? Annalisa, great, thank you. I'm so glad you're here. Any other questions specifically? I'll be sure and send everyone the link to the recording, number one, and number two, a printable one sheet about everything that Carrie just talked about, our different services, a few specifics about what they do, and this is something that you can share with your aging loved one in the San Diego area, or you can share it with colleagues who you know might need the services, or neighbors, or friends, or etc. So I'll be sure and send Carrie's fabulous one sheet. I think if we don't have any more questions for Carrie, we'll just say thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
You're free to go so we can talk about you.
Very good. Thank you all so much for being here.
Let's see, let's get this technology back here. So Carrie talked a little bit about the reach that we've had in San Diego County, and you're probably all very familiar with this demographic shift that's happening all across the U.S. Specifically in San Diego County, we know that the population of 60 plus is expected to increase by 130% in the year 2020. So we really do have our work cut out for us as an agency by serving seniors all over San Diego County. We also know that demand is high due to the baby boomer population. Right now there's about 10,000 boomers a day retiring, and we know that 90% of seniors want to age in place. And that 70% of those people will need additional support to do so. Is anybody familiar with the term aging in place? You could say yes or no over there. For those of you who might not be, no, thanks for your transparency and honesty. So the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention defines the term aging in place as the ability to live in one's own home and community safely, independently, and comfortably, regardless of age, income, or ability level. Now, just to specify, that also includes not necessarily the person's actual home that they've spent the last 40 years in. This could be moving in with a relative, or just living in community that they want to be in. So when we talk about people wanting to age in place, that means living where they want to live safely, independently, and comfortably, regardless of their age, income, or ability level. We do know studies have shown that for elders in the community, an estimated 70% of those people are going to need support to do so. And support comes in all shapes and sizes. Terms that we use for that are formal and informal. And ElderHelp would be an example of a formal support service. Other really obvious, maybe formal support services would be home health care, if any of you are using a home health care agency. Community-based services such as Meals on Wheels, the Glenner Memory Center here in San Diego. Those are a couple other what are considered formal support services. Informal support services is an unfortunate categorical title for family caregivers and neighbors and loved ones who are helping somebody age in place. We sort of know, as Rosalind Carter said, that there are only 4 kinds of people in the world. Those who have been caregivers, those who currently are caregivers, those who will be caregivers, and those who will need caregivers. And it sounds like we've got quite a nice little mix here on our webinar today of people who definitely are currently, some of you are not, and presumably preparing for a future role, and we never know if it's going to be us who will need it. So what is a family caregiver exactly? What does the title mean? A family caregiver, by definition, which is good for everyone to know, is also called a care partner. It's a little more of an empowering term for a family caregiver. But a family caregiver is anyone who provides physical, social, emotional, and or financial care to someone who is ill, disabled, or aging and requires assistance with daily life. So because we are ElderHelp, we tend to talk about the care recipient in this category as an aging loved one. All of the information that will be shared really does also apply to if you are a family caregiver for an adult with a disability who's not 60 or over, or a terminal illness, or somebody with who is ill at any age. This picture here is a lovely example. This is a former ElderHelp volunteer, actually, Betty, and her mother. And although that is a high-quality medical bed that you see, that is in her home, and that's Betty as she leaves to go to work, and her paid professional caregiver was coming to help assist her mother during the day while Betty went to work. Last fiscal year, Carrie talked about our reach, just over 7,500 seniors and their families all over San Diego County. We know that we reached. 3,500 phone calls came through our main phone line, and from concerned daughters, spouses, relatives, loved ones of somebody aging in the San Diego County seeking support services for them. So we know that there is a huge need to support people for people who are aging in our community. We also know that typically family caregivers are untrained, unpaid, and under-supported daughters, son-in-laws, nieces, neighbors, spouses, partners, people like some of you on the webinar today, and me, who are attempting to navigate the highly confusing matrix of healthcare, Medicare, Medicaid, chronic disease management, memory loss, and frailty. So the term family caregiver is a little bit misleading. Just to be really clear about that term, if you're not self-identified as a family caregiver because you're assisting an aging loved one who is a neighbor or somebody from your church, there's no actual requirement for kinship in this term family caregiving. Family caregivers are designated by the relationship to the care recipient. So it could be a partner, a neighbor, a friend, a spouse. You know, we've sort of covered all those bases there. You do not have to be directly related to the person receiving care. I didn't speak to the number of 44,000. There's approximately 44,000 family caregivers in the U.S. right now who are providing support to an aging loved one. And what we know about those people, that group, that demographic, is that the average age is 49. It's slightly more women than men, although the male population is definitely on the increase of that, just through societal changes that are occurring. The staggering number is that of that 44 million family caregivers, 56% of you are working full-time. And we know that the average amount of caregiving that you're providing is just over 24 hours a week on average, and that's in addition to working full-time. Caregiving scenarios are really unique. Roles may change as the care recipient's needs change, as well as the ability to care for the carer change. And so what's an example of that? Let's say you're providing care for your mom and dad. Let's just use an easy example. You're helping your mom and dad so they can remain in their home. Well, what if one of those people dies and now you're dealing with just mom or just dad as a widow? It's probable that the needs of your mom or dad, who is the widow, are going to increase. Well, let's say that simultaneously around that time, you had a child or got a promotion at work. So your needs or your ability to provide care is also changing simultaneously. So some of you may have been slowly increasing assistance to a loved one for 2 or 12 or 20 years, and others of you may have had to jump into a family caregiving scenario due to a medical emergency or a family crisis, such as a death, like in that example. But each care partnering scenario is completely unique. It's not just based on the physical or emotional or financial parameters of the needs of the care recipient, but it also is dynamic in the relationship between the carer and the care recipient. It's ever-changing, it's complex, and it's a dynamic role, and it shifts as the care recipient's needs change, typically increasing, as we said, and caregiver time, resources, and abilities change. So just something to consider. How many of you who are on the call today who either are preparing to be a family caregiver or currently a family caregiver are also raising kids, a child, or kids? Just out of curiosity, if you just wouldn't mind saying yes or no. Not me. Yes. So for those of you who are playing that dual role, that's referred to, you're a member of the sandwich generation. So you're helping an aging loved one on one end of the life spectrum while also raising a child on the other end of the life spectrum. And then for many of you who are doing that, you're also working. So we're going to talk a little bit about the types of care that you provide. And I just want to share with you some of the terms that are used, especially for those of you who are providing active family caregiving support to someone. The type of support that you're providing typically will fall into 2 distinct categories called activities of daily living, which are called ADLs, and instrumental activities of daily living, or is commonly called IADLs. Is anybody familiar with these terms or these categories? No, thanks, Carrie. I think it's important to empower family caregivers or future family caregivers with this language, because this is the type of language that you can use when advocating for your loved one as well as yourself when looking for resources. So routine activities that a person needs to do every day in order to survive that include personal hygiene such as bathing, grooming, and oral care, dressing, eating, maintaining continence, and transferring are considered ADLs, activities of daily living. Whether or not a person is capable of performing these activities without assistance determines their level of independence. So ADLs are essential for survival. IADLs, or instrumental activities of daily living, are things like driving, meal prep, shopping, medication management, etc. And the way that I remember the difference between the two is, for me, the I is for independence. So if you're assisting someone with their IADLs, then we're to assume that they're capable of performing their essential activities of daily living on their own. So they're eating and using the restroom and dressing, etc. A lot of people who are family caregivers and assisting a loved one with activities of daily living probably self-identify as a family caregiver because it's a pretty intense job. Many people who are assisting a loved one with IADLs may not self-identify as a family caregiver. It's just what you do, right? I go over and I mow my mom's lawn for her, or I take my dad to his doctor's appointment because he doesn't drive anymore. I research long distance. I do a lot of research for support services for my family up in Washington State. This is real. It's also important to know if you are an active family giver currently that approximately 6 in 10 of you family caregivers assist with tasks that nurses typically perform, such as injections and catheter and blood pressure monitoring, medication management. And as we know, nurses and medical assistants are not only paid professionals, but they're trained and monitored. So if you're in the role of a family caregiver and providing these services, it's important for you to self-identify so you can align yourself and advocate for training and support in that role. So now that we've kind of talked about who are family caregivers and what do they do, did anybody who answered no at the beginning of the call, have you changed your mind? Are you seeing things a little bit differently? I'll use the case of Carrie, since I warned her we would talk about her when she left. When I first came on to develop this program a year ago, Carrie did not self-identify as a family caregiver, although she was the first person in line for crisis scenarios with not only her parents but her in-laws. And when medical emergency arrives, her and her husband did have to shift gears to provide physical and financial, obviously emotional support in the event of a medical emergency. So it's been nice to see in the year that's passed that her self-perception does include identifying as a family caregiver. So why is it important then to self-identify as a family caregiver? It's an essential step in helping you in a role that, while totally gratifying and meaningful, can also be very complex and overwhelming. Whether you've been helping a spouse or a friend for a few or a dozen years, or whether you've been suddenly thrust into a scenario which has you trying to navigate the matrix of healthcare, Medicaid, Medicare, or other community services, by self-identifying, you can start seeking out support and resources that can help you navigate this maze. Again, you're not alone. That's another reason to self-identify if you're playing this role. Family caregiving is typically a marathon. It's not a sprint. And we here at ElderHelp are here to help you and to provide you with resources that are in the community to help you so that you can stay healthy and effective in your role. So we know also as a demographic, family caregivers are an absolutely essential piece of the healthcare team. 4.5 million unpaid family caregivers in California, I think this is a 2014 study, provide care to an adult with limitations in daily activities. The collective hours that family caregivers contributed in this particular study was 3.85 million in 1 year, to the estimated value of about $47 billion. So it is important that we self-identify. It is important that we are having finally a spotlight shining on family caregivers and their contribution and their own health, wellness, and safety. Again, family caregivers are an essential piece to the care team. So all those hours and all those dollars saved to the healthcare industry, but at what cost to family caregivers? Some of the impacts of family caregiving might be a little bit obvious. If you're supplementing an aging loved one's income so they can afford to stay in their own home, then you probably know it's having a financial impact on you. But some of the less obvious ways that family caregiving can impact you financially are in a reduction of wages due to absenteeism, reduction of hours, early retirement. I was thrust into a crisis family caregiving scenario about 6 years ago when my mom fell and fractured her pelvis and was on complete bed rest for multiple months. She happened to be on a cruise, so the first stop that they had and the first hospital that they can find was in Mexico. So I had to help get her out of Mexico safely, back to her home in Seattle, and then I just did what I thought was the right thing to do as her daughter, and I took a leave of absence at my job. I relocated across the country. I moved in with her, and I became her full-time caregiver, because that's just what I did as a daughter. I didn't self-identify as a family caregiver. At the time, I didn't, obviously I took the financial hit by taking the leave of absence, but it didn't occur to me that that was also going to impact my long-term Social Security income. Physically, if you're helping someone with bathing or transferring, helping them get in and out of bed or a chair, you may have thrown your back out or strained muscles. So those are some things that might be obvious if that's a role that you're playing. But if you are worrying about an aging loved one or worrying about them living by themselves safely or are falling or leaving something on the stove too long, you're at increased risk for insomnia and sleep issues, substance abuse, stress-related illness, poor concentration at work, and then just in general, self-reported poor health is what we find in studies. If you are either an active family caregiver or somebody preparing for the future, psychologically speaking, you may experience or you are at an increased risk for stress, anxiety, depression, irritability, guilt, feelings of resent, helplessness, hopelessness, grief is another big one. And then from the socio-emotional perspective, sometimes you rearrange. So if you have a set amount of vacation per year at your job, some people find themselves planning to go home and check in on mom and dad if they're long distance, planning on getting a new fence put up or a new roof put up or grab bars into the restroom as opposed to taking leisure time or vacations. Also, the psychological and physical emotions that, the physical impacts and psychological impacts that go hand in hand, such as exhaustion, can sometimes lend itself to disconnecting from your friends and family, not going out and taking care of yourself socially. So some of the signs of caregiver burnout, just to keep an eye out for, are you constantly feel exhausted, even after sleeping, withdrawal, which we just talked about with friends and family, and avoiding socialization, which, as we talked about in the beginning, is an important component of overall health, not just for seniors, but for everyone. If you're increasingly impatient and irritable, or you have difficulty relaxing or unwinding or shutting down the monkeys in your brain when it's time to go to bed at night. If you've experienced or are currently experiencing any of these things, then I would say you are a family caregiver and it's time to find support. This quote at the bottom is a real scenario of a very good friend of mine who was providing support to her mother, who was the primary family caregiver for my friend's grandfather, who was living with dementia. So not only was my friend grieving her grandfather's dementia, she was stressed out about her own mother's health and well-being, and simultaneously she was raising 2 teenagers, which I think all of these categorically could fall into just that alone. And she was really afraid to share what was happening in her life at work because she was afraid that she already had her family obligations with her children and emergency situations, and she was afraid to share what was going on the other end of this caregiving spectrum for fear of demotion or getting fired. Can anybody relate to any of these signs of caregiver burnout? Especially some of our family caregivers. I'm sure some of us, we've all experienced some of these things. Is everybody asleep? Is everybody over it? Yes, JC says yes. Yeah, difficulty relaxing or unwinding. Yeah. So a lot of support for family caregivers tend to look like a to-do list. And if you are in the position of providing support for an aging loved one, it's already overwhelming. If you're not attending to your own physical health, whether it's you're not getting enough exercise, you know you're not eating healthy because you just don't have time to be cooking meals, it feels like these lists of, well, be sure to get enough sleep and be sure to eat healthy meals can just feel like one more glaring reminder that you're not doing it well. So I like to talk about some strategies for self-care, and I say easier said than done because I can identify with that. Find your community. Find a support group for caregivers in general, or if you have a loved one who has a specific diagnosis, such as Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or terminal illness, find a support group that is specifically for family members like you or friends. I strongly encourage you to think about therapy, or at least starting to create a strategy for your own self-care. We're going to talk about that in our next webinar, and we're going to start building on tangible tools for family caregivers that will help you not only identify your needs, but help you map out how to get the help that you need in your self-care strategy. So we're going to keep building on these concepts, and in the upcoming webinars, we're going to have actual tools that you can print off and use for your own care and as an advocate for your loved one. Some of these other strategies for self-care are seemingly obvious, but maybe we don't do a good job of it because it just gets backburnered over and over, and it's not part of our habit or our daily routine. So seeking out laughter was how I got through being my mom's primary care partner for 5 straight months, 24/7. I needed to laugh regularly, and so I added some of my favorite comedians to my Facebook feed. So, you know, sometimes you just go and look on social media and it's just sort of a habitual thing, but as a result of adding those people onto my feed, I found myself laughing, and it was just part of my daily routine then. Does anybody want to share a strategy that you use for self-care? No obligation to. We will be going into a little more detail on that in some upcoming webinars, but does anybody want to share anything? Is everybody still with me? Nobody? Nobody's doing self-care. All right, this tells me this is an important webinar then. Yes, okay, good. Thanks, guys. Working out. Oh my gosh, it's so important. Make time to run and be outside. Yeah, and if we're in San Diego, that's a good place to do it. Scheduling your week is difficult. I completely agree. And sometimes we have the best intentions to, this week I'm going to get out and I'm going to start exercising. I'm going to start making food from scratch. Then suddenly there's a crisis scenario that we have to respond to, and again, it gets back burner. So running outside, being in nature, working out, these are so important for you, not only personally, but in your journey as a family caregiver. Thanks for sharing that, you guys. Let's see if I can get my... So what are our next steps? Oh, this is great. I'm sorry. Let me me go back to this response because this is really good to share. So this is a continuation of the thought that planning the week out is really difficult because you never know what curveballs, or I call them whammies, what are the whammies this week, are going to be. And JC shared, thank you, that I realize it's okay if it doesn't play out as planned, so I go with the flow of the day or the week. That's a really excellent example of mindfulness and being present and being able to go with the flow and not have to drive the ship against the current. So that's a really, really great strategy for self-care, JC. Thanks for sharing that. And, you know, I'll make a note that we incorporate a little discussion about mindfulness, because if you're not used to going with the flow when there's curveball after curveball or whammy after whammy, it can be a really difficult thing to get used to. And many family caregivers tend to take on a lot of responsibility from a place of control because it seems just easier. I'll speak for myself. If I do it because I know how my mom likes her tea, I know where she keeps the rags and the linens, I know where this is, so it's just easier for me to do it all than to ask for help. So mindfulness and learning how to ask for help, these are things that we will be covering in the upcoming webinars. So moving forward, I know that a lot of you are in the workplace or working. We really need to embrace that family caregiving is the new normal. We talked about the demographic shift that's happening in the U.S. There are millions of people who are making a difference in the lives of a loved one, and there are serious implications as a result of that. As we talked about with the demographic shift, like I said, the community of family caregivers is absolutely going to increase. We need to help others, friends, colleagues, or even other relatives in your life in the self-identification process. Engage is really important. Let's start talking about our needs as family caregivers or future family caregivers in preparation for the role. Ask us at ElderHelp, email me, call our main line. Ask your HR representatives and your managers, what resources do you know about for family caregivers? Does your organization have an EAP benefits program for family caregivers? Ask each other. For some of you that are coming on these webinars regularly, do you know each other at work? Can you form an informal support group for one another to share resources? Can you put up a flyer in your community bulletin board to talk about these webinars, joining these webinars, or getting some really specific questions out there that you need answers to? And then empower. Empower your colleagues, yourself, your relatives who are playing the role. If you're managers, talk to your employees about family caregiving. You might not even know, if you're a manager, that some of your employees are playing this role, because sometimes family caregivers hide it out of fear. You've already empowered yourself by signing up for this webinar and being here with me today, and I really appreciate that. I encourage you to follow us on social media if you're into that type of a thing. Find us on Facebook, LinkedIn. We provide really great articles, links, blog posts, in addition to these webinars. So topically speaking, you just never know what you don't know sometimes. So I encourage you to follow us on social media, or in the body of my email, you can sign up for our newsletter. We also have really good resources that go out that way. Finally, I just would like to say thank you so much for being here. This is a really difficult role, and taking out your precious lunch hour, or your time at work, I really appreciate it. I want to encourage you to join us next month as we learn how to create a personalized needs assessment and plan. We're going to continue to build on the knowledge and the momentum that we've created as we move forward in our webinar series for family caregivers. You're going to get an email from me with a brief survey and an invitation to join us on April 6th for our next webinar in the series. We'll dig in this next one and take a look at some tools and provide printable forms for you to use if you're currently a family caregiver or future in preparation. We're going to learn about how to create a needs assessment and plan with specific step-by-step instructions and then the forms that accompany that. And additionally, for any of you who are with us today from Qualcomm, I'll be on site on March 21st for an in-person lunch and learn. And I totally encourage you to come by and find me, join me, say hello, bring your questions, your comments. This webinar series is very new to ElderHelp, and it's the people who attend and who want to continue attending that will help shape it in the direction that's most meaningful for you. So come by and find me for sure. The formatting got a little lost on this one, but here's our contact information at ElderHelp. Again, we are a free community resource. And although our primary services and programs are for seniors in the San Diego County area, we do take all phone calls about all things. So we are a resource for the community, and I encourage you to call us. Feel free to email me. I want to take the last few minutes now and see if anybody has any specific questions. Is there anything that we talked about today? Financial implications, talking to somebody in HR about EAP benefits for family caregivers. What is the needs assessment? What's going to be on the next webinar? Does anybody have any questions that I can answer regarding family caregiver issues, as well as our agency? So we're getting some good feedback here that learning to accept help, that people want to help, and we all do, to say yes, it's something, is something that we want you to do. We're going to be covering that in next month's webinar for sure, and I think that's so important to bring up. Thank you for saying that. We are going to be covering how to create a plan so when somebody says, can I help, you know how to answer the question specifically. Because sometimes if you haven't identified what your needs are, really specifically, when somebody says, can I help, in the moment, it may be difficult to come up with a way to help. So we're going to be covering that next month, JC. Thank you for sharing that. That is really important, is knowing how to say yes when somebody asks for help in a really tangible, specific way so they continue to ask for help. Brian says, are there formal or informal peer support groups? Yeah, so that's a great question. There are both. That we've got so many great resources in San Diego, which you'll be receiving a resource list for that will include family caregiver support organizations that are for family caregivers in general, such as the Southern Caregiver Resource Center, or very specific, such as the Alzheimer's Association. So yes, there are both formal and informal. And if for some of you who do work together, I really encourage you, like I was saying, to band together at work, empower one another, come together, let your managers know, talk to people in HR, find out how you can start an internal support group. And if you need assistance with that, I would love to help you with that. Let me help you spearhead that. EAP benefits, can you elaborate on this topic? Yes. So it's interesting to know that many larger corporations, you may already know, have different emergency compensation for child care in the event of an emergency. But also, on the other end of the aging spectrum, a lot of larger corporations are now including family caregiving, benefits for respite care. Does anybody know what that, does everybody know what that term means? If you're a family caregiver, you might be familiar with that. If you're providing the family caregiving, respite is a term that's used for bringing in support so you can go do other things such as work, such as go do the grocery shopping, so bringing somebody into the home. So if this is something that you're interested in, I'm going to note this right now, and I will help you find out at your organization if this is something that you have. So thank you for bringing up that question. I encourage all of you to reach out to HR in your department, no matter how big it is, to find out what your benefits are. EAP. Oh, and it just occurred to me, you might not know what EAP means. Employee Assistance Program benefits. So typically when we talk about, quote, benefits, we think of health, dental, vision, right? Insurance, 401k. We think of those types of benefits. But often in larger organizations, in some progressive smaller organizations, there's also other types of benefits, such as gym membership reimbursement, caregiving reimbursement, family care, child care, family caregiving reimbursements, all kinds of really interesting things that you might not even know you qualify for. So I encourage you to reach out to somebody in HR. That's their job, is to tell you these things. Any more questions? These are really good, and it's almost like you're lobbying me. You're setting me up for the spike over here for next month's webinar, which is a great feeling. Well, I'd like to thank all of you. I'll stay on here for a few more minutes in case you think of any questions, but all of you have registered via email, so if you think of any other questions after this today, please email me or call me, and I will do my best to get you the answers that you're looking for. I hope to see you virtually next month on April 6th, or in person if you work at Qualcomm on the 21st. And I just really appreciate you taking your time out of your day to be with us today. Thank you guys all so much. Bye, Marianne. Bye, Carrie. Thank you so much for being here. Annalisa, thank you so much. And Marissa. JC, thanks for all your great contributions today.